Here's something that happened a few days ago that I find interesting. There were 30 churches this woman asked for formula in a mosque. For some reason, the more unreliable sources just say 20 churches, and they all refused, while the more reliable sources say 23 churches refused and 7 accepted. And all the reliable sources mention that all the churches that gave her formula were black churches. So, um, let's not be racist and mention the credit to black people. 7 black churches and a mosque all were like, yes, let's help this woman. 23 churches were like, no, you're too far away, or no, we don't have the money, or no, we're supposed to do spiritual charities. Even though in the book of Acts, moral charities are actually encouraged. So, my only thoughts are, damn, if this was the anti-Nicene Christianity, those churches would have been, um, investigated, or for the lack of better words, they would have a quick, I want to say judgment, but that's not the right word, disciplinary. Because during the anti-Nicene period, Christian churches in Ethiopia, in Armenia, and the Roman Empire would have given that woman, they wouldn't give them random milk, because modern formula wasn't really a thing back then. They would have got her a wet nurse. And we have like a lot of records of wet nurses being sent in Gaul. Because I looked in history, I'm like, what the early church did? And I checked AI, and Meta AI is like, oh, in Gaul, they would have sent on wet nurses. I'm like, what, really? So, I'm not sure if that's reliable or if Meta AI was making that up. AI can do that. But I'm like, damn, modern churches are more interested in having money for themselves and probably donating the rest to Israel. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if all of them were like, we can't help you. It's because they were too busy helping Israel. I wouldn't be surprised at least. And a mosque. That mosque also gave her formula. They're like, yeah, let's help you. I'm like, man, I don't like Islamic theology, but I will give credit to the Muslims. Those are pretty good Muslims. Credit due. Just because I don't like the theology doesn't mean I have a problem with the people. I mean, that mosque, good people. They were more Christ-like than 23 churches. Literally, Scripture would say to help your neighbor, to love your neighbor as yourself. It is written, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. That is the first and greatest commandment, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Upon all these laws, upon these two morals, all laws flow. Something like that. And it also says if you cannot love your neighbor, you cannot love God, for God is love. And that woman, 23 churches were not necessarily loving. You know what I mean? And I was just like, this is ridiculous. The Anglican Church a century ago, I'm Anglican by the way, they would have always helped that woman just a century ago. I just don't know what to think. I'm just like, the Church of Love did not really seem loving. Know what I mean? I think this love of thy neighbor has gone over the head of many modern Christians. Because I could be wrong, but I feel like this would not slide in Oriental Orthodoxy. I doubt the Armenians or the Ethiopians or the Coptic Church or the Syriac Church or the St. Thomas Church. I doubt this would have slide because they are very communal Christians who give charity despite their poverty. America? Okay, let me tell you this. Here's a story that's unrelated, but as a symptom of what I think is the cause. Dirt poor Syrian immigrants built a cathedral with all little money that they have, but with a lot of years of dedication in New York. I think it's New York. While very rich stadium churches refuse to build God-glorifying cathedrals and have mega-rich pastors, such as Joel Osteen, for example. I think what happened is the mental economic Judaization of Christianity, because as America gets more pro-Zionistic over time, the more pro-Israel America gets, uglier our churches get, and the more interested they are in money than they are in being charitable to help thy neighbor. I mean, if you read the Sermon on the Mount, charity was a minor issue, sure, but still an issue mentioned nonetheless. So I'm just viewing it as just economic stinginess, or in other words, the Christian religion in America being Judaized, being more economically stingy, just like the Talmud synagogues are. That's what I think, anyway. Um, and I say this because African American Christianity tends to be less Zionistic than European American Christianity. So it wasn't a shock that 7 African American churches were giving that woman money. And if you're wondering, in terms of race and culture, no, I'm not anti Semitic. I don't hate Jews. I just hate their religion, and I would consider myself an anti Semite on that. Which is why I'm denigrating their religion and saying economic Judaization. Because that's what's going on. And it's horrible. Like that woman, all 30 churches should have been like, yes, we're going to help. 23 of them were like, no, I'm going to be stingy. And one of them, pastors, even went on YouTube saying, we don't owe you economic help. I'm like, what in the hell? That's a break from historic Christianity, where economic help is the usual historic Christianity. I mean, how many hospitals, food banks, and orphanages belong to various churches? At least 500, maybe 1,000. If there are more, I would be surprised, because America is not Russia-sized. But it is a lot. So that's just what I'm thinking. Anyway, God bless that woman. I know she's not a Christian. I think she's actually not even a parent. I'm pretty sure she made up just for social experiment. I would consider it a success, because it was like, holy damn. Anyway, y'all have a good day. See ya.